Okay, welcome back to another video. Today we've got two of our leaf blowers. I've got the Ego
and I've got the Ryobi.
And we're going to compare notes on these two machines. So I have owned a Ryobi machine in the past.
You haven't owned this one though, have you?
I haven't. This is the brushless one, right? This is probably the highest spec one at the time you bought it.
It had the highest, well, I'm not sure if it had the highest CFM. Yes, I think it did. It had the highest CFM. So this is Ryobi's 18 volt brushless leaf blower, and it's got 425 CFM, which is cubic feet per minute.
Yep. And this one here is Ego's, well, at the time I purchased this was Ego's entry level leaf blower. So this is the Ego 530 model with the 2.5 amp hour battery. And this here has 530 CFM.
Gotcha. So there's roughly about 100 CFM difference between these two models.
Between the two machines, yeah, and I assume your 425 is the CFM on turbo boost mode, because it is on this one here. You get 530 on turbo.
Right.
So this...
Well, I suppose regardless it's 100 different.
It is.
Yeah. Does yours come with a battery? So how do you buy this?
Okay, so this machine here can be bought as a skin only, and it can also be bought in a kit here in New Zealand, at least, with the 2.5 amp hour battery, which is the way I've gone about this, because these Ego batteries are really expensive, given it's a 56 volt system.
And likewise, you could buy this as a skin only, tool only. Actually, I think Ryobi don't sell this one anymore.
They don't. This model's gone right now. So most of them...
Well, the 18 volt range now is a 420
CFM?
Yeah, something like that. It's slightly lower than this.
Yeah.
No, it's actually 410 CFM. So the 18 volt brushless one of this is 410 CFM. You can buy it as a skin, or you can get a battery.
Yeah. So we'll cover off some of the key differences between these two machines, but I think the first question that you've got to ask yourself if you are comparing two machines is probably what ecosystem you already belong to, right?
So here's what I think. If you are already invested into Ryobi's ecosystem, you're already invested into Ryobi's 18 volt range, you already have a battery, you already have a charger, then probably stick with the Ryobi ecosystem.
Yeah.
You're getting slightly less CFM in the 18 volt range, but you're not having to invest in those other things. If you like Ryobi and you're after the CFM and you like their ecosystem, then you can go into their 36 volt range.
And they've got a 40, is it a 40 volt range as well? Limited.
I think it comes into when you're getting into their lawnmowers and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But they do offer a 36 volt leaf blower that has got really comparable 550 CFM.
Yeah, and I think for the use case that we use these for, bit of yard work and also drying a ceramic coated car, the more CFM, so the more air output on these, the better, right?
Yeah, so to compare, this is roughly rated for medium-sized yard work. So this is a medium-sized yard, perfect for blowing off your paths and stuff, exactly like what you said.
Yep.
You probably want a little bit more CFM for your car, just to blow that water off. If you were trying to buy a leaf blower for the first time, I think you would go, well, okay, am I going to use this for yard work only? Then you could probably get away with this. Yeah,
you could.
If you wanted, hey, I want a little bit more CFM, then you could choose, right, am I going to go with Ego? Or am I going to go with the high 36 volt range of Ryobi? And probably just thinking, if you are wanting to get into an ecosystem, Ego for the garden tools is probably the way to go.
Well, they pretty much only make garden tools, right? So you've got your line trimmers, well known for lawnmowers, you know, brushless chainsaws, all sorts, but they don't get into the power tool range. So I think that's probably your key consideration. If you've already got, you know, a bunch of power tools using the 18 volt ecosystem for Ryobi, that's probably your way to go. I was in that boat. I had a lot of Ryobi tools, and the reason I went for this machine at the time was it was one of the more powerful systems that I could get at the time. Given it's 56 volt and 530 CFM, this machine here. Ego now, their top machine, which has only recently been released, goes up to 765 CFM. So their top rated blower. The downside to this system, if you do want to get into it and you don't have anything, is these batteries are heavy and they're expensive. This battery costs more than the skin.
Oh, really?
Here. Yeah, so this here in New Zealand is about $300 for a 2.5 amp hour battery.
Right, gotcha.
Whereas you could get a 2-pack of your 5 amp hour for almost half the price. So this is an expensive ecosystem to buy into.
And I pair this with a 5 amp hour battery. And this battery is roughly about 7 of a kilo, 700 grams.
This one here is a 2.5 amp hour battery, so if you compare them, look at the size difference of them. Obviously 18 volt, 56 volt, but this is about 1.3 kilos, so you're looking at half the capacity, double the weight.
And that's probably, so we kind of had a little feel with both these machines, and we did some quick math, and we worked out that these machines, without the battery, is roughly about the same.
Yeah, same weight. Your battery's where you have your difference in it, right? Yeah. And there's a bit of an ergonomical difference as well. So if we kind of think, if you were looking at, buying this machine versus this one, if I put my hand in the position just behind the trigger on both of these, this is how they sit. So the Ego is more leaning forward, which is probably in a comfortable position to be using it for yard work.
It sort of twists your wrist into that natural blowing position.
It does, whereas this one sits a bit more horizontal and upright. So you can see the two machines right there.
And so I think also because that one there sort of twists your wrist, it sort of makes it feel ever more a little bit heavier.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And especially if you're going to use this machine and you're going to use it on a car, if you're drying it, right? If you're using this around the yard, this is quite ergonomical, but get you to hold your machine there. If you're using this on a car, you are bringing it for a lot of surfaces.
It's quite heavy to hold it up.
Yep.
Whereas this one here, you don't really notice too much of a difference whether you're down or up.
Yeah. So I find with this machine quite often, I'll use it with two hands, especially if I'm doing the roof of the car.
Gotcha.
Just because I will go forward and it's not the most comfortable thing to hold.
And I suppose while we're talking through ergonomics and specifics here, that one's got a turbo button on the top.
Yep.
And so does this.
Yeah, but the two turbo buttons are
ergonomically different.
They are. This one is a lot more comfortable to use this for a prolonged period of time.
This one here is actually quite small and is quite hard to hold down. You've got to push a little bit more, whereas that sort of just naturally...
Yeah, I feel this is ergonomical to use for a long period of time. Like this one's all right. If you're using this on turbo boost for, 20 seconds, it's all right. But if you're holding this down for the whole duration of drying a car, I find that machine's a real struggle to use.
But bear in mind that this turbo button on the newer Ryobi models have sort of been placed into a more ergonomic position.
Yeah, so that's purely the notes for this specific machine, which you can't buy new right now. So really the use case of this with that turbo button would be if you're buying this used.
Yeah, and I think that's probably insignificant in this discussion, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's more around that ecosystem.
Both of these have got variable trigger?
Yep, so we've got the dial on the front, on the Ego, you've got yours on the side.
Well, that's sort of like cruise control really, isn't it? So can you hold that down and it will hold the trigger in place?
No.
Oh, really?
So if I want to use the machine.
Yeah, but that's variable trigger, so you can...
Yep. That's the only way to operate it though. There's no cruise control, so I have to keep my finger on that
the whole
while
time.
I'm using it.
Well, that's a difference. So both of them have got variable trigger, so you can push this in as much as you want.
Yep, same on this. Or this is not actually a variable trigger, it's on or off.
Ah, right.
So you've got a variable trigger with cruise control.
Yes.
This is a non-variable trigger. However, you're using this to control your speed, but you have to keep your button engaged the whole time.
Whereas this one here is like cruise control, so you can twist that on, and that will lock the trigger in at that specific lot. So you can...
So that's a clear advantage for this machine. Now looking at that, if only you could also cruise control the turbo button.
Yeah, because you're gonna, I see what you mean. So you have to push that turbo and that's what I like about this, is I can be doing extensive blowing for yard work or blowing off the car, and I can lock that in and I don't have to have my hand on the trigger here at all.
Yeah, whereas if I'm using this one, I have to hold this trigger and this, which is quite comfortable because the way they sit in your hand, you've got thumb on one, forefinger on the other, or index finger on the other. But it's not
interesting. See, I didn't know that. I thought that button at the front there was to lock it in.
No, that's changing your speed. So this one here, without using your turbo boost, puts out just under the CFM. I think it's about 395 on your normal trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you're holding your turbo, you get to your 530.
Right.
So without turbo on this is close to what your output is on your machine.
Gotcha.
It's that turbo button difference.
And I mean, this one here does come with like a little nozzle attachment on the end here, which sort of is more directional for when if you want to blow leaves off in a specific area, and you can it'll take that off.
Yeah, with this kit, it doesn't come with anything. No, you can take the this tube off.
You can take this tube off as well, but I don't like to because I always jam my fingers on the inside of it.
Really? This is quite easy to take off.
Trust me, you can take that off there, but I'm not doing it now because I always like nick the back of my finger and it takes skin off, so I ain't doing that.
What I found is quite nice about this, given it is quite easy to take off as well. If I'm doing yard work, I use this on here. Quite often, if I'm drying the car, I said it was easy to take off. My goodness.
That sort of gives you, if you do take that off, I do that too, it does give you a little bit more flexibility, right?
Yeah, so you're almost using it in a, well, it's a really compact, short format, right, in order to dry the car. I don't feel like it's any more ergonomic. You don't have to stand way back from it, right? So if you're working in a tighter space, it's probably quite nice to have that.
And I can also see that on the back of both of these machines, there's some little feet there.
Yep.
And those feet just help for storage, right? If it's on a shelf or on the floor of your garage, just means that the machine's not going to topple over.
Yep, sits nice and flat. Or with this one here, you can hang it on the wall using these. I imagine you could probably...
That's got a little picture. It's got a little picture hook type thing in there, so you could hook that on there.
Yeah. So I think if you're looking at storage of these, they're pretty similar. This one's probably a bit easier to put over a hook than that one there. You'd probably be a bit more precise with the way you set it up. So what we might do, we'll take these machines out, show you them in action, and we might do a little bit of yard work, dry off the car, and show you the difference in the power between the two. All right, so it's not a scientific comparison by any means, but it's just showing you what this is like in action with both the normal mode and also the turbo mode. So this is just the normal mode. And then with turbo engaged. So standard mode again. And then engage the turbo. So now the Ryobi's turn. Now keeping in mind this is 100 CFM less than the Ego, so obviously we'd expect the Ego to disperse more air and therefore do a better job. This is not a direct comparison between them, but it shows you this machine in action on normal mode and also on turbo. So we'll put it into normal mode, clean up some of this. And then we'll engage turbo mode, which is actually pretty similar in volume on this machine versus the Ego one, where turbo definitely makes it a lot louder. This one here, normal, I'll go on that for a few seconds and then press the turbo button. Turbo. So there's a quick look at what both of these machines are like doing some general yard maintenance. What we'll do next is we'll pull the car into the driveway, we'll wet down the hood, and we'll do a comparison of these two machines moving water off the ceramic coated hood of the Tesla. So first up is the Ryobi. Now keep in mind this car here is ceramic coated, so if you try this process with your vehicle, if it is not ceramic coated, you're not going to get the same results. The reason why it makes it so easy to dry these cars with leaf blowers is that ceramic coating. So we're going to do this half of the hood on normal mode, the other half on turbo boost. We'll engage that turbo button and do the other half. Okay, and it's the Ego's turn now. Keeping in mind normal mode on this is about the same as the turbo boost CFM output on the Ryobi. I'm going to engage our turbo mode on the other side. So not too sure if it reflected very clearly in the video, however from our personal experience we find more CFM makes drying a ceramic coated car a lot easier and a lot quicker, hence why we're recommending something in that 500 plus CFM range to dry your ceramic coated car.
Alright, so you saw a couple of use cases of both these blowers in action, and here's my recommendation. If you're already invested in the Ryobi ecosystem, you're already invested in the 18 volt range, then this tool is probably the one for you. If you're going to use it for just sort of yard work and things like that, this is perfect for you. However, if you're going to use this tool for yard work, plus using it and to dry your paint off and things like that after you finish washing it, then I recommend you either stay in the Ryobi range, but you up that to a higher CFM, something in that 500 plus range. You're probably going to have to get into the 36 volt range. If you're sort of looking for the first time to buy a new blower and you're going to do a bit of yard work and a bit of drying off the vehicle, then you probably want to come into this Ego range, and that's because it gets you into that 500 CFM range. So those are sort of our recommendations, and because I own this one and the CFM's not enough for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy the newer 36 volt range just so that I can get that extra CFM. So I have just gone through and made a real detailed and specific video on this tool, so if you're interested in finding out more about this, go and find that video. And if you're interested in our Ryobi tools, we've got a whole big back catalogue on our YouTube channel, so subscribe to that. That also gives you an update when the next recent video is coming out. Thanks for watching.